Hey everyone, Erica Zeal here. So today I want to talk about how to get your knees to stop popping. So I'm going to share with you some really key things to start to be aware of just in your daily life when you're doing your workouts, when you're getting up and down from the ground, when you're going from sitting to standing, and when you're doing stairs. So these are some great tips to really work to strengthen your knees to help to get your knees to stop popping. So many times with our knees, like there's a multitude of a lot that's going on with our knees, right? Are the muscles around our kneecap, are they strong enough to help support our patella, right? That's the first question we need to be kind of addressing, because if we aren't strong enough in these muscles, our quads in particular, our VMO, which is this muscle on the inner side, that can be a part of maybe why your patella isn't staying in the right spots, okay? But that's only a piece of it. We can't just address quad strength, like that's a piece of it. Another piece we really have to look at is our glutes and our hamstring strength and balance within our quads, right? So when we are, even just standing, when we're walking, when we're doing strength exercises, when we're doing squats, because our knees should never, ever hurt us, okay? So if they are, that's a sign your body's telling you like, hey, something's just not quite right. And the thing is, I challenge all of you is to go deeper and let's figure out what's not working or what's overcompensating and causing the knees to hurt, okay? So we have to look at, are our glutes working? Are our hamstrings working? Because some people tend to actually be really quad dominant. If you are someone who does a lot of cycling, takes a lot of spin classes, you probably are a little more quad dominant. Do your knees bother you when you do spin or when you go bike, right? That is something you really need to pay attention to make sure when we're on a bike that we don't put too much weight forward into our toes and that we're actually using our hamstrings and glutes. Something I like to do is like get out of the saddle a little bit more, pull the sits bones back and lift, right? Now, I like that cue a lot even with doing squats, because here's what you're starting to notice, right? We're talking about knees. But notice I'm heading up to what's going on with your pelvis and your hips. Our pelvis and our hips play a huge role in how our knees feel. And as someone who grew up with a lot of knee pain, and yes, my muscles were weak, but an even deeper level of that, as I discovered over my almost last 20 years of being in this field, was that, a lot of it actually comes from the hips. So we can fix our knee issues by addressing what's going on with our hips, okay? It's a big part of it. So again, are we standing or doing exercises with a tucked booty? Ladies, if we're tucking our booty, you're putting a lot of pressure into your knees. Your knees are really doing way more work than they should be doing, right? So we have to untuck our pelvis. We have to do that zipping and lengthening up. Now, remember that cue I mentioned a little bit ago about like pulling the sits bones back? Now, so for most of you, that's going to be a really good cue. The occasional one of you is maybe going to want to overcompensate if you already have a good arch in the lower back, a little bit of an anterior tilt of your pelvis, which just FYI, women should have a little bit of an anterior pelvis. I have discovered this in all my years of really specializing with the core, right, deep core pelvic floor, that we actually women should have a little bit of an anterior tilt in our pelvis, right? We don't want a perfectly like flat lower back. We don't want to be doing that because it actually shuts off the pelvic floor. If we can't optimally activate our pelvic floor, then we are not getting optimal connection and strength and stability through our pelvis and through our hips. So we're starting to see how all of this is intertwined and connected. Okay, so there's some things to be aware of. So I want to talk about like when you're going from a seated position to a standing position, ladies, okay? Actually, let me grab my chair right here really quick because when we do this, if we start and we're in a seated position, yes, we have leaves, we're outside, it's fall. So if we're sitting down, right, something to pay attention to just from a good postural thing is making sure we're not just doing this when we're in a chair. I always tell everyone sit at the edge, okay? Kind of wiggle those sits bones back. Because if we're always sitting with a tucked pelvis, that's going to affect our knees. So we want to be sitting up nice and tall. When we go to get up out of that chair, what tends to happen is people tend to really round forward. You don't even realize you do this until you stop to like break it down. Or we're putting pressure like forward in our knees. So we're going to get up and we're like, the weight is like going forward and then up, right? I don't even activate my glutes and my hamstrings when I do that. The pressure goes all to your knees, right? So instead what you need to do is think about like pushing down lightly into your feet. We don't use our feet enough, and we need to pull our sits bones back. That's where like wiggling them back in your seat can help you. And then think about the hamstrings and glutes like going back to bring you up. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, I do have glutes and hamstrings back there to help support me. That right there, ladies, is gonna really help you take a lot of pressure out of your knees, okay? So that's sometimes like the popping can be a big part of because we're not in alignment. Same thing when we're going up the stairs. Up the stairs is actually a lot easier to activate the glutes, right? So when we're going up, it's the same thing of like, we step up and we want to think about pulling sits bones back and lift to bring us up. So I'll just do a lunge. A lunge is a really good like practice exercise for like going up the stairs. So it's that bending of the knee, then we pull back to lift, and the core is working too, right? So many times when we go up the stairs, our weight, instead of pulling back and lift, our energy doing like this circular back and up motion, so many times what we're doing is we're jetting forward, right? Dog, you're in the way. Scoot over, bear. You guys can't see my knee. I was like, the dog's in the way. He's my little sidekick. He follows me everywhere. So one thing, ladies, when you're going up the stairs, we'll talk about down in just a minute. When you're going up the stairs, make sure your knee, when we talk about knee in front of the toe, there's a time and a place for that, right? I'm not someone who's like, oh, your knee can never go in front of your toe, because like, come on, the reality of it is when I go onto the ground, my knee's way in front of my toes, okay? But if your knees are hurting you when you're doing that, you're not ready for it, which means you gotta back off to strengthen to then be able to do that. I believe every single one of you should be able to get up and down from the ground without knee pain and go up and down the stairs without knee pain. We have to break down what we're doing, right? So back to this. So when we're going up the stairs, making sure your knee, the weight is not here in the patella. The weight needs to actually be back more in the middle of the foot and the heel. And then you lift to kind of go back here, up and forward. Notice how I'm kind of like hinging forward. And I do this when I teach lunges because it's such a functional move, okay? Just start to break that down and be aware of it. Now, when we go down the stairs, we go down, and that's the same concept too when going up hills. When we go downstairs and we go down hills, like don't believe as much as you can. If you're a runner and you have a little bit of knee stuff, don't run down hills. Walk down hills and run up hills. It's actually a lot better from a strength perspective and a heck of a lot better on your knees. But when we're going down hills or going down stairs, it's really, really, really easy to put our weight forward into our knees, okay? So start just paying attention when we're going down the stairs to be like, my energy is pulling up through my body. I'm using my legs to like help support me as I step, right? Versus just being on the tippy toe and the knee going forward. So I promise you, if you start to just actually like slow it down and break it down, you'll start to notice a huge shift in how your knees feel. Now, I could go on for hours. I'm gonna wrap this up. Last thing I wanna mention is really working on a balance of our lateral stabilizers, our outer hips, and as well as inner thighs. In particular, most women need to do more work on their lateral stabilizers. We have hips for birthing children. I know I don't, my hips are super narrow, but I still have to work on my lateral stabilizers. It is something that has changed my life with my knees over the years, especially if you are knock-kneed. A lot of women that have knee pain, knees tend to roll in. Here to share with you really, really good news that we can retrain our femurs, our thigh bones, to be straighter. I've done it. My left leg used to really rotate in. My right one did a little bit. My left was really bad when I was younger, and it's really darn straight. Is it perfect? No, we're not going for perfection here. We're going for optimal function so that we can move throughout our daily life with no pain. That's my goal for every single one of you. So thank you all for joining me today. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. If you'd like to learn more about what I do and my program, specifically my core rehab program, really is the program where I like break a lot of this stuff down. I help, really rehabilitate from the deep core, the hips, the ribs, the back, like the whole body. And knees definitely do get addressed in that. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.